Welcome back. Today, we have an extra special treat for everybody. My guest today is a gentleman who might be more optimistic than me. He is grounded in local news and local goings on. He is the man who has tapped into the optimism that's happening here in New Hampshire. He is the founder of the newsletter and the podcast, Granite Goodness. He's got an incredible mustache. My guest today, Andy Demeo.
We're working on the stash. It's funny you say that. Usually I wouldn't be caught dead without at least 3 to 5 mustache combs on my person at any given time. And I don't have a single one today, which is a shame. Because usually I like to give them out. I meet other guys with stashes and I'm like, hey, nice stash. Here's a little mustache comb. A lot of dudes don't have combs. I don't have one today. It's a real shame. So don't judge the stash based off what you're seeing here. Come back another time. We're going to grow bigger stashes, both of us.
I can't grow a bigger stash without a mustache comb.
You have to believe.
I don't have a mustache comb.
We're going to get you a comb.
I need a comb, Andy.
4x the size of that stash. And it's all about optimism. With this, you have to believe in the possibility.
The possibility of it, man. You know, it's like the people, they see me and they say, maybe not right now because I did kind of trim it down a little bit, but normally they think that I have a Freddie Mercury-esque mustache.
That's a compliment in my mind.
That's about the biggest compliment any human being could get ever. International sex symbol, incredible musician,
Yeah.
You know, Freddie Mercury.
Worst associations to have from a mustache. No, but no, I think you work it. I think you're rocking it.
Thank you. You too.
Thanks.
When people said to me when I first started wearing it, they said, "Oh, that's your essence."
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh, okay."
It is an identity. I mean, they're coming back. I actually think we might have passed peak mustache. I think the peak for young men in America having stashes, I'd pin it at 1.5 years ago. I don't know why. That's just my vibe. I think we're down slope now, but I have a feeling you're not going to give yours up anytime soon. I got at least 3 more years in this bad boy.
Dude, it is. I think your assessment of it is like 100% correct.
Doesn't it feel right?
It feels right, and I was definitely late to it. I saw some of them coming around, and I was like, oh, this is good. I hadn't done it since I did it when I was a joke in college or whatever, right?
It starts as a joke for a lot of people, and then you're like, I don't know. And then everyone's girlfriend's always like, oh, please take that thing off. But then your buddies love it. And then it just becomes a part, I don't know.
And then 2 weeks later, the wife is like, well, maybe you shouldn't shave it off.
That's right. Yeah.
That's what happened to me.
Right. Somewhere in between what the wife and the girlfriend think is, probably what you should do. And your buddies too. The consensus of those 3 parties, that's the path forward.
Yeah.
My advice.
The consensus of those 3 parties with a slight edge to the boys.
I was about to say to the buddies.
Because the mustaches for the boys, dude. It's so good.
In their interest.
Oh man, well, I think it's wonderful what you've done with your brand and how you are trying to find the positive stories. Can you tell me though what that is, because I've listened to some of your stuff and there's sometimes one-offs or some giddy ups that I might see that are positive stories, but that's not necessarily what you're focused on.
Yeah.
And so I just what can you tell us a little bit about Granite Goodness and what type of stories you're trying to find and tell?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, the 10,000-foot view of what I'm doing and why. There's a couple different paths to it, but I'll try and give you the most direct one. And maybe I'll tell the story of how I got into this. Right. So my whole background, my career has been oriented around environmentalism, right? I've always been someone who considers themselves an environmentalist. I am obsessed with orangutans. I think they're the most beautiful, majestic, wise-looking animals in the world, and they're just amazing. And I remember as a kid learning about, for some reason in grade school, it's like you do like ancient Egypt and the rainforest, like on repeat. You know what I mean? It's I don't know why it's like 5th grade, ancient Egypt with the rainforest. Then again, and 6th grade. Then if you go backwards back to 3rd grade, you do it again. So I don't know, something's up there. But I remember learning in the rainforest unit, like the tropical rainforest, it's not doing well. And the orangutans live right in the Bornean and the Sumatran rainforests in Southeast Asia, and they're not doing so well. Like a lot of their habitat is being destroyed and, they're under threat conservation-wise. And I found this to be heartbreaking, as a kid, because I grew up playing Donkey Kong 64. Shout out to Nintendo 64 people listening to this. And, that game is about, you're like a family of Kongs, different apes. I think Donkey Kong's a gorilla. His cousin Chunky Kong's a gorilla. And then there's Tiny Kong. I think that she's some kind of monkey. Diddy Kong's a monkey. But Lanky Kong, who's one of the characters you can play as, he's an orangutan.
Nice.
And he's a total weirdo. He has overalls and he plays the trombone. And so my entire life path was like based in his image.
I want to be this guy.
Yeah, I want to be this guy. Yeah.
I love it.
He's just a little strange. And, so I played the trombone originally as a kid. Anyway, when I learned that, people like Lanky Kong weren't doing well, and by people I mean, our genetic cousins, the orangutans, one of the 4 great apes. This is heartbreaking to me. And I remember Tropicana, the orange juice company, they were running a promotion that was like, hey, kids, drink our orange juice, and if you scan the code on the back of the orange juice carton and you send it to us, we'll conserve like 5 acres of the Amazon rainforest, which isn't where the orangutans live, but it doesn't matter. It's all the same to me. So I was like, okay, this is it. I figured out the solution. I just need to drink enough orange juice, and then I'll save the Amazon rainforest. Like, I had it figured out. I told my parents, like, this is easy. I get down orange juice like it's nobody's business. So I drank like 12 cartons of it, and I was like, this, Mom, doesn't feel so good. But as
12 cartons in like one day?
no, I didn't really. I mean, it's probably 2 cartons.
Yeah. But definitely pushed it a little bit.
At a decimal point there, on the left. So as part of that exercise, I made an email, my first ever email address, and I wanted it to be Save the Trees. And Save the Trees was taken. In fact, it was taken all the way up to 133. So my email moniker for then and ever since then has been Save the Trees 1 through 3 at whatever. It was at Gmail at the time. But yeah, and that was when I was like, okay, I guess this is important to me. This environment thing feels important to me. And, there's a whole other like roundabout path to my career that like I don't have to get into unless you really want. But long story short, I studied conservation and sustainability at University of New Hampshire, and, have had a couple of interesting jobs that touch different parts of environmentalism, right? I worked in a nonprofit that helped colleges measure and reduce their carbon emissions. I used to be a professional beekeeper, helping try to make, beekeeping more sustainable in all these different ways.
You got a beekeeper in the house, baby. Giddy up.
Oh, yeah. That's the whole... Beekeeping is a whole world that we can, again, we don't have to touch on any of these. We can go deep dive any of you want.
Definitely want to learn a little bit about your beekeeping.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And then I was at a company called Impacts Asset Management, formerly known as Pax World Funds. They're one of the world leaders in, if you're an asset manager, you manage money and you want to think intelligently and strategically about, hey, climate change and all these environmental issues are going to impact the economy. What are the risks and what are the opportunities associated with that? And so I was like, that's a really cool place to work. I went and worked there. And it's a very optimistic place to work, right? And the nonprofit I was at, Second Nature in Boston, like I got exposed to all these smart people who just, worked day in and day out to, like work on these hard problems. Like, are we doing, carbon emission science correctly? Are we being accurate? What are some win-win ways in which we can, reduce our greenhouse gas footprint? What are ways that, companies are building the future while, building wealth for people? Like, so I felt like I had this very optimistic exposure to a lot of different parts of the environmental, enchilada, right? And there's many, when people think of the word environment, they think of a bajillion different things, but, whether it's emissions or economics, like it all touches. And that experience was distinct from a lot of my friends, right, of colleagues of mine who also had, an undergraduate background in environmentalism. They were only ever exposed to the regular news, right? And the news is, I think it's accurate to describe it this way, a non-random sample of all the worst things happening in the world at any given time. Right?
Yeah. Non-random sample of all the worst things happening in the world. That's great.
Yeah, no, pretty much. I mean, there's very smart people have described it that way, and I wouldn't dispute that characterization. And, so I had this experience, right, where I was like, hey, I know a lot of people who I think are pretty darn smart, and they're, not trying to say any of these things are perfect, but they're making progress on them. And I had a very different view than friends of mine who didn't have that exposure, who didn't get to learn about all these cool companies in the private sector who were, doing the impossible, right? And I was like, there's a mismatch here, right? Between the amount of dread and anxiety and despair a lot of my friends feel and the exposure to, people really making the world a better place that I got to have in my career. And so, that dissonance turned me on to this whole world of progress journalism, you could call it. Solutions journalism is a similar way of thinking about it. But basically, there are many, small, scrappy, independent, enterprising journalistic outlets around the world who ask the really big question, like, how's it going out there on planet Earth? And what are people doing to make progress on some of the biggest problems we can think of? And what are the big strides or the positive momentums that you can point to? And I'll give you an example. My favorite one is this Australian organization called Fix the News. They used to be called Future Crunch. And every week they find, 20 to 40 just really amazing stories from around the world that are like, hey, here's another threshold that has been breached in, the reduction of extreme poverty in some country that we're not used to thinking about. Hey, here's a country that has eliminated an entire class of disease after working on it for 30 years as part of a public health campaign. Hey, here's a country that is outlawing the practice of child marriage, or here's a country that is becoming more supportive of same-sex relationships or same-sex marriage, right? So these victories on, various environmental and human well-being things, they happen all the time, actually. But what you don't ever see is them compiled in the same place, right? Typically, we get the opposite. We get all the worst things compiled in the same place. That's the news, right? So when you read these newsletters of like, oh my God, another record has been broken for renewables, another, trend in, the adoption of this innovative environmental thing is accelerating, like it gives you a very, very different feeling, dare I say, an optimistic one. When you read them, some people describe this feeling as hope scrolling, right? The antithesis to doom scrolling. And I just put it this way, Ivo. When I first discovered these newsletters and these organizations, my initial feeling was, wow, this is nice. This is a break from, the dreadful monotony of the news, which is just everything going wrong, right? And then after a couple weeks of reading the newsletters, I thought, okay, something's up. There's no way that all this great stuff can be happening. Monumental victories for human well-being, just like unimaginably great improvements across a long period of time, again and again and again. There's no way that this can be happening, and I haven't heard about it. These people are going to run out of good news, right? They're going to run out of good news. They can't keep pumping this stuff out every week. There's no way. And then after a couple months of reading it, that's when I became convinced that something was really broken about the way that regular people learn about the state of our relationship to complex problems, right? And I'm not saying, the media is all bad, like we can get into that, but I do feel very confident in making the argument that the way that most people learn about really big problems is through a lens that is inordinately negative and irrationally negative. If things are not framed journalistically and news-wise in a way that is anxiety-inducing, depressing, or in a way that is threatening to the average reader or listener, it's not going to get traction. It's not going to get picked up. It's far harder for that information to make its way through the media ecosystem. That's just, the reality of the business today, and we can get into that. And so my contention is not that people should ignore problems, but that if all you pay attention to is all the worst things happening in the world, that's not an accurate way to view the world. It's also super depressing. And it's, I would argue, not pragmatic, because if you're depressed and hopeless all the time, what's the point? Optimism and hope are a pragmatic philosophy, and that is part of what I'm trying to get across with my work. So anyway, that's the 10,000-foot view of how I got into this. And all that Granite Goodness is applying that lens to our little corner of the world, right? to New England, essentially. I started it just focused on New Hampshire, and then I saw there's an opportunity. No one's doing this for New England. There isn't really a regionally prominent outlet that is just owning the solutions journalism niche for New England. And so I could go for this. I could do it. So, the curation of good news stories that aren't fluffy, right? When regular people think of good news, they think of like a cat getting rescued in a tree by a fireman. They think of some old lady getting help with the groceries. They think of kids fundraising for something. And like, it's nice, but it doesn't really matter that much. It's like, acts of kindness and charity are wonderful, but I'm really curious about what are the ways that our systems, right, in governance, in economics, in our ecosystems for scientific and technological innovation, in our relationship to environmental problems, like what are the ways that the biggest problems we have, are they getting remediated or having progress made on them? That's the most interesting question to me. And it turns out there's tons of stuff happening all the time, but you never see it compiled in the same place, but you do at Granite Goodness. There are many, many news outlets around the world that will tell you what's going wrong in the world. We are one of the very few that will tell you what is going right. That's what it is.
It's a wonderful answer.
That was a way too long answer.
No way, man. It's a wonderful answer, and I appreciate you for doing it. Do you ever run into something where there's something I might call like positivity bias, where you're like something like looks really cool and on the surface it's really amazing, but it's really obscuring like a deeper problem?
Sure. Yeah. Well, that's a good question to ask.
And just before I go, one thing that I'm thinking of is like with housing, for instance. With housing is a consistent one where they're constantly telling you like all this stuff that's happening, and they're making these new developments, and it's like, I talk to people in the community every single day, hundreds of people in the community about this issue specifically, and it's not changing for anybody locally.
Yeah. Right. Or it's getting worse.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Exactly. It's definitely not getting better, or it's getting worse. 100%, Eddie.
Yeah. No, and that I think is the tricky thing, right? And part of why I do, so I should have said this, but Granite Goodness is two things functionally, right? It's a newsletter, right? Where like I try and find these good news stories and round them up around New England, but also for each state in New England. I have a regional one. I have one for New Hampshire. I'm going to be rolling out one for each state. But it's also... You're
going to have to change the name?
No, I don't think so. Because, the motto or whatever, mission statement is, we share optimistic stories of progress, innovation, and problem solving across New England, proudly hosted in the Granite State. That's what I say. And Granite, it's abundant everywhere. I think that...
Better believe it.
Yeah, there's a kind of fun, Granite can be an analogy for kind of the stoic and plucky problem-solving nature of New Englanders. And,
love it.
Granite Goodness, too, is like an homage to our focus, not on fluffy stuff, right? We only talk about things that are substantive and optimistic. Granite and good is how I describe it. So it's, the regional ethos, and it's the journalistic lens of no fluffy stuff. That's what makes it Granite and good. And I didn't realize that until like 12 months in, by the way, that it could be a double entendre, but well, not really, but you know what I mean.
I know exactly what you mean, because I go through the same thing with this, constantly, where I'm like, at first it's like, oh, well, people are going to just think that I'm just about like health and wellness, but I like to engage in conversations about housing and with local council members, and that everyone's path to wellness is different.
Yes.
And so if that's a council member helping to solve that problem for his community, and that's helping them be well and helping his community be well,
yes,
giddy up.
Yes. No, I love it. Well, it's a holistic approach.
It's a holistic approach.
In the widest possible sense of the word. But yeah, I mean, so the newsletter is one thing, right? And that's nice, because when I try and make the rational case to someone of, hey, we too often have, a negatively skewed view of problems and of the world, the newsletter is the way that I can literally make that argument to them, to show people, like anyone right now can log on to, well, you don't log on, there's no accounts. You can go on to granitegoodness.com and you can look at the newsletter and you can say, wow, here's 100 like great things that have happened in the state of New Hampshire this past year in every sector you can think of, right? And the other half of it is the podcast, right? I interview people like you're doing now. I have conversations with them. anybody who touches some complex problem and who can bring a perspective of optimism to it, those are the people that I want to talk to, right? And sometimes, it touches political people. I try not to have them be more than like 5% of the yes, but but I am proud of the fact that like I talk to high profile Republicans, I talk to high profile Democrats. My brand is a place where people can coalesce around issues and get away from kind of, in my view, the tired partisan fault lines of looking at it. Like if you want to look at issues through a political lens, which I recognize some people don't have the ability not to do that, right? I think there's a privilege to being able to say that. But if you want to do that, there are many, many places which you can do that. Like you can find politically oriented journalism in abundance and all other places. I'm trying to build something that's unique and differentiated from that. So it like touches politics, but I don't really see it through that lens. But to answer,
that's how I read your stuff too. I read it as pretty like that whether you are, you think one way or not, the reporting in your journalism is just about the subject.
Yeah.
And you have had both sides on. I'm very similar the same way. I've had Republicans on.
Yeah.
I've had Democrats on.
Right.
Bring it.
Well, it's like I want it to be appealing to anybody. That's the thing, right? Similar to you.
I want it to be accessible to anybody. That's what I want. And what I get worried about sometimes is that like if I do put the person who can't see, who doesn't, as kind of nicely you said that, I guess, who doesn't have the privilege of not seeing things through a political lens,
sure,
I might not be able to reach them.
Yeah. Yeah. And, my work, like, here's a roundabout way of answering your actual question, right? Of like, what do you say to someone whose rent is going up every single year and feels like they're getting crowded out by new developments and they're not generally pleased with the macro trajectory of like their life relative to a lot of these big things? I have a few things can be true, like it's true that on paper, less human beings today live in extreme poverty, right? Both on an absolute and a relative basis, right? There's like every year for the last 20 or 30 years or something, 200,000 people or so every single year have left, the economic class that, development economists generally define as being in extreme poverty, living on like $2 a day or $2.50 a day, which is a terror. Like it's an unbelievably, like we're so privileged and relatively like rich here in the United States. It's a way of life that would be hard for me to even contemplate, right? And like I want to have respect for that. So like that can be true on paper, right? This trend in like the macro well-being of people economically, but it's still true that there are tens of, millions of like starving and destitute people alive in the world today, right? And if someone was in front of me right now, who lived in sub-Saharan Africa and who was like dying, I wouldn't look at them and be like, cheer up. Less people than ever today live in extreme poverty, right? Like that would be an inappropriate, inhuman, and patronizing thing to say to them. You would be like, oh my God, how can I help you, right? So communicating both parts of the story of like, yes, there's a rational argument based on data that you can try and make to people about the state of big problems and the well-being of the average person, but also holding space for who cares? What about the people who are engaging with these issues? Let's tell their story. Let's tell their perspective on it. My pose, so to speak, as a journalistic person, is not to try and tell people that there aren't problems. Not at all. There are so many problems, right? And even the idea of covering, solutions or people making the world better, like all those things are in response to problems, right? So like to answer your question of like, well, do you ever cover a thing that is actually simple? Like, a lot of people don't know. Hopefully this is like a fingers crossed good news thing. America may have peaked in terms of the number of people every year who die from opioid overdoses, right? I think if you look at, the statistics, how many people just straight up just die from that every year, 2023 to 2024, it declined by about 22% nationwide. I think you can double check my math, but it's something like
it was right over 20%, and it was the first time that it's ever happened.
Yes, right, which is like great. New Hampshire and Maine, right? New Hampshire specifically, it gone down even more. It's like 36 to 37%. So we're outpacing the national rate of recovery from well, people, I don't want to say that word, of death from opioid overdoses, which is like, this is a really good thing.
It's a really good thing, and it's New Hampshire needed to do that because it was a top 5 afflicted state from opiate use, and so we needed to juice it up and be a little bit more ahead, and I was very happy to see that.
Yeah, exactly. And I got to talk to one of the people responsible for making that happen, a guy named Mark Lefebvre. He wrote this book called Healing a Village. He's a community addiction recovery consultant. Like, he's been very involved in this work for a while, and hearing his story was like really important to me to get him on the pod and be like, here was this problem that was hailed as completely intractable for many, many years, as long as I've been an adult. This is one of those things that, like, oh my God, this just gets worse and worse and worse every single year. But then it didn't. Now it's going down. Then, you can debate, why is it going down? Is it going to keep going down, right? That's not my role. My role is just to say, okay, here is potentially the beginning of a very positive trajectory. And here's a success story on making one big, ugly problem better that a lot of people may not know about, right? So, some people could point to that and say, well, yeah, 37% of people in New Hampshire, less of them may have died from an opioid overdose, but that's still a lot of people who died from an opioid overdose. That's horrible, right? And to them, I would say, you're right. Even one is unacceptable. Even one is a tragedy. We're all just people. But
my question is, though, what if they said, yes, 37% less people are dying from overdose.
Yeah.
Which is incredible, from opiates.
Yeah.
And then the what was being obscured is that 37% of people was actually, was dying of some other, I'm making a hypothetical situation here. They're dying of some other drug that's hurting them. And so, and that's the same thing with housing, where it could be like, hey, we have this great stuff that's going on. We are building these big developments where you can come and move into, where it's like, or the supply is starting to go up,
right,
and all this stuff, and so, but it's not translating yet, quite yet, into
a reduction
in rents, or just the ability for people to buy a home and settle in New Hampshire. Not just people who are on we're talking about all people, the middle class who are right there that want to be able to take the next step, and then the people who are just renting and want to be able to continue their rent and not have to pay an absorbently more amount of money.
Yeah.
And so, as you constantly see the city, if you're in any Facebook group in New Hampshire across the state, you'll see that the councilmen in that town are trying to promote what's positively happening for housing in their area.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is, but they're hamstrung because it's a fight between the developers and the government. And there's just a lot of, sometimes it's probably nefarious stuff that's going on. Sure. Sometimes it's just that people can't get out of their own way.
Yeah.
We all know how important strength training is for long-term health, but it can be hard to know where to start. I was in the same spot a year ago. You want to make sure you're doing exercises right, avoiding injury, and getting results, but it's easy to feel lost without a plan. That's when I found On Target Fitness. At On Target, you get a custom strength program, personalized attention in a small group setting, and the nutrition coaching you need for real lasting change. In the year I've been working out there, I've gotten stronger, more mobile, and more confident. My form has improved, and even something as simple as walking feels better. The group energy keeps me motivated, and every workout is fun. On Target just opened a new location in Kingston. Now you've got even more options to experience their amazing approach. If you're ready for lasting change, head to www.ontargetfit.com and schedule your session today.
But what you're saying, I hear what you're saying. I just was curious if there is ever anything that you get worried about of, you're reporting on something, but that's not really your job, is what you're saying. Is you're just giving people the path to it. You're giving people the path to the positive story, and then they can kind of go in and delve into it beyond that.
Yeah. I would say all I'm trying to do is to give people an empathetic, rational, and approachable picture of progress on a bunch of different problems. But, progress is a word that, it implies an unfinished, right? You will never find a story on granitegoodness.com that says, we did it. We solved housing forever, right? No, like it will never be perfect, right? And I don't want people to I don't want to come across as, some out of touch Pollyannish douchebag to be like, well, just cheer up. Like we can just will our way out of housing poverty and all these things. Like, no, not at all. Like it sucks. It's not fair. A lot of stuff sucks. And, but my argument to people if you don't have to listen to it, would simply be, if you are wanting an approachable and more positive look at, okay, here's a bunch of things that are going well that you might not have heard of because there's no incentive a lot of places to talk about the stuff that's going well. That's what I am trying to provide for people, but I am very, very careful, to always talk about these issues in a way that is not dismissive of, put it this way, Ivo. The people who study this stuff at the highest levels, who I have a lot of respect for, these big progress questions of okay, the average person's life today, is it better or worse than someone 100 years ago, 200 years ago? And what's changed and why and how? They have a mantra that they use that I think is the perfect way to frame this. They say, these three statements are true at the same time. One, the world is an awful place, right? The world is an awful place because every year, millions of kids die before they're 5 years old, okay? Even one is terrible. And, to share personal, I'm the youngest of 4 kids. My parents' first kid didn't survive. They died as an infant. Her name was Jenny, and she died from a rare form of muscular dystrophy. I think it's similar to that Lou Gehrig's disease that people are more familiar with. And, that event, my mom is still not, I don't know that you ever really get over losing a child, right?
Yeah.
But to this day, she is not over it.
Yeah. I've lost my sister, and she was 33.
Oh, well,
when we lost her.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Man, I'm sorry to hear that you also lost your sister. And
I never met her, but I feel she's there.
She's there, yeah, man. And it's a a thing that parents, and now having my own children and seeing that, I am one child, another one coming on the way in December.
Congratulations. Yeah.
Kitty up, baby.
Yeah.
Thank you. And hopefully some congratulations in your future at some point.
We're working on it.
Giddy up. And so, yeah, man, and one kid is, one kid is too many, and
yeah,
the effect that has on a parent is it's
unfathomable.
It's unfathomable.
I'm not even going to pretend that I can imagine it, right? But I've seen in my relationship with my parents how that has changed their lives irrevocably forever, right? So we live in a world where lots of kids are born, and for whatever reason, poverty, lack of access to healthcare, all kinds of things, they just don't make it, right? And a world where even one kid dies is a horrible place. I have a feel, I'm comfortable saying that. World where even one kid doesn't make it, that sucks. That's unacceptable to all of us. It should be unacceptable to all of us. It's unacceptable to me, right? But statement number 2, the world is better than it used to be in a lot of ways that we can measure. Child mortality is one of those ways. In the year 1800, the global average was 50% of kids born didn't make it, I think, to age 15. And you can look up the stats. It's shocking. It's shocking, right? Today, the global average is closer to, 1 in 100 children don't make it to age 15. Far less, depending on where you are. In Europe, it's 1 in a bajillion. In Africa, it's a little higher, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's just 1 in 100. If you think about what's happening across the globe,
yeah,
that's a significant step up.
It's a monumental improvement. It's an improvement in human well-being that is hard for us. We live in a society where a child dying is seen as a tragic thing, and I think of course it's always been seen that way. But in the year 1500, people would just have 12 kids, and they just knew that not all of them would make it, and it was normal. I'm sure that they still felt as much love for their children as we do today. Like, I'm not going to, argue that they didn't, but, child mortality is much rarer today. And that's a wonderful thing. Like, we should all be happy about that. And I think most people are. Like, people disagree about a lot of issues, Ivo. No one is pro child mortality. Like, no one is like, oh, more babies that don't make it. Like, this is great. No one feels that way. And if they do, they shouldn't.
Yeah, maybe like 0.001% of people, they should just be,
Yeah, there's
away.
one guy who's like a total dick, and he's no one likes him, and he's the Grinch, whatever, and he's not on the podcast. But so the world sucks, but it's better than it was in a lot of ways that we can measure. And statement number 3, which I bet you can guess, the world can be much better than it is right now. It can be much, 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 much better, right? And so when I say to people at Granite Goodness, I tell the stories of progress and problem solving and making improvement on problems. I'm not trying to tell them that problem number 1 isn't there. I'm actually doing it because of problem number 1. We focus so much on thing number 1. The world sucks. That's a message that we get almost unrelentingly everywhere, all the time. We don't talk as much about 2 and 3, right? We don't talk as much about, here's a lot of things that have actually gotten better than they used to be. And here's a bunch of ways that it can be much better now. Like, I'm in 2 and 3. Like, I'm a champion of, points 2 and 3. And I think it, matter. Like, you don't want to be patronizing to people, right? Like, that's very important. But it matters that people understand that the world is better than it was. It matters that people understand how and why that happened, because in doing so, we can keep going, right? Like, how did we get to, like half of kids dying to 1 in 100 kids dying, right? It might not have been half. I think it was more like 20%, like whatever. The stats are shocking either way. It doesn't matter. You can go look.
Yeah, it's super substantial. For infant mortality, it's super substantial from the 1800s to now. Right. And if you looked at that, you'd be shocked.
Yeah, it's crazy. We need to understand progress, human progress on all these different things. And it's not just child mortality, right? It's like, again, we live in a world that is, unbelievably flawed and unbelievably unfair and very awful in all these different ways. But the average person today has, more, they live a longer life, they live a healthier life for more of their life years. They have more access to educational and career opportunities. They, on net, live in a society that is more sexually egalitarian, both in terms of their cultural practices and their equality before the law. They, in more and more parts of the world, live in a society where they have more freedom around the kinds of relationship structures that they can choose to have, with like same-sex couples and all that stuff. I'm just saying all this, I am bisexual, by the way, all that gay stuff. But like, there's a lot of good stories to tell. And my challenge is to talk about these things in a way that is not patronizing, that is maybe even a little bit fun and accessible. Because like all the kids get today is just endless doom. They get endless doom of like, here's all the ways that, pardon my French, can I swear?
Yeah, you can just fucking swear.
That you're fucked. That like, this is the message unrelentingly for all young people today is you are fucked in every imaginable way.
Yeah.
Everything is stacked against you. The world is fucked and there's nothing you can do about it. And why even try? Like, cynicism is such.
The Gen Zers think that like you need to make like $600,000 a year just to have like an average life.
Oh my God.
Like that's what they think, and because and it's stressful, and not that you don't need to make a decent amount of money to, you do that. That is a reality and something that I normally struggle with, because I can get, for myself, I'm always talking about this stuff, but I'm trying to push people towards it. I'm doing my best, and I'm telling my best. Yeah, I'm doing my best to tell people to get into the sauna and to do cold plunge and to to maybe think about the food that they're eating, and maybe to go, let's not have as many pharmaceuticals that we've had. Maybe let's research some of the stuff that some of the pharmaceuticals that we give to children, like all this stuff that I'm trying to, push people in a direction to just give them access to.
Right.
And sometimes people don't have the time or space to do that, because they need to make their only focus can be about making money, and it is the cynicism, and it is, if we could just switch the way that we thought, and that would be great. But then we would have to change a lot of systems, because the
Sure.
systems, I think the systems that are in place now, they're, especially now, and it's probably why this is happening so quicker, is it's meant to keep us distracted, right?
Yeah.
It's those news of keeping us, people are always talking about this with my content. Like, one thing that I don't do is people say, oh, if you did this, if you talked about this, if you did this in this way, you would get more viewership. And it's like, I will get more viewership by connecting with my people more.
Yeah.
And that's how I'll do it. I won't do it because I did some hook or I copied somebody else to do, to like, I understand I'm a marketer. I am an advertiser. Like, I get that. And I love that. That's like, that is my favorite thing to do with myself and with businesses. But like, if I'm trying to manipulate people, that's not it.
Well, you're not building a real, people say similar things to me. Like a response that I often get is, oh, well, that's very nice, but do you think people really want good news? Do you think they want that? Because, bad news is everywhere and bad news sells. And if it bleeds, it leads, right? Like I am fond of saying, if it bleeds, it misleads more often than not. That's not an original quote from me, by the way, but I bring the same viewpoint to like building a relationship with that audience. Like, more and more people, I think, are tuning out from the news, right? Because it's, and again, it's not like, I don't want to have like a conspiratorial view about this. Like, I think the reasons for it, like they're pretty banal. Like, if you think, let's do classic podcaster, like, let's go back to cave people. Okay. And you think of, the incentives that a cave person is under, right? Like 10,000 years ago or whatever, or even before that, when we're developing our brains and all that stuff. Like, the upside, or no, you're out there in your cave, you have too many acorns for the winter, right? The downside of not noticing that you have, more than you need, it's like, so what? There's not really a risk to not noticing that you have an abundance, right? But if there's a tiger outside your cave and you don't notice that, the downside is you could die. It's permanent, right? And so there's a risk asymmetry, right, between noticing and paying attention to things that could threaten you and things that don't pose a threat to you, right? And so to some extent, it's very rational to think, okay, our brains have evolved to pay more attention to things that, we can perceive as threatening, or that could, permanently end our experience here on planet Earth, right? Like, that makes sense. And I think that, bias, right, for being more aware of negative information, like that pretty much explains the structure of a lot of modern news media. Again, I don't think it's like some dudes in a room thinking, how do we make people depressed? I think it's really just, we live in an information economy and an information marketplace. And, the most, unfortunately, like, when you look at in aggregate, like the most base appeals to our instinct, like, they are often what rise to the top. But those are the same things that I would argue, Ivo, burn people out, right? And you're not really treating them with respect and with dignity if you're just going to feed them endless doom all the time. And it's no wonder that, 40-something% of Americans, and I suspect it's growing, are saying that they no longer, tune into the regular news. We actually, as a society, I think in the United States, I think we peaked in terms of social media use like 3 years ago. I saw that the other day. You see that?
I could guess that too. Yeah, that a lot of people, I have a lot of friends who are coming up to me who are my age, older than me, younger than me, especially a lot of the younger kids, 25 to 28, who grew up in that anxious generation. And, they are switching to flip phones, and they're, keeping their cell phones at home. Yeah, dude. So there is less social media happening. Are you familiar with the will to power?
Let me introduce you to Elevate, a premium functional mushroom company focused on supporting your highest potential. They offer a range of powerful supplements crafted from the finest medicinal fungi designed to naturally enhance your well-being. Elevate carries everything from mushroom tinctures, capsules, and teas to their delicious mushroom-infused coffees. All of their products are made with USA-grown mushrooms and contain only wild medicinal mushrooms, no psychoactive compounds. I personally use their focus tincture every day and love their chai tea blend. It's my go-to for a calming yet energizing boost. Elevate's products support mental clarity, immunity, and overall vitality. They ship nationwide, so whether you're new to functional mushrooms or already a fan, Elevate has something for you. check them out at shopelevatemushrooms.com, where you will find a detailed description of each product and experience the difference for yourself.
Why does that sound familiar for me? Remind me what that is.
So will to power is like, and it's what you're saying. It's like, is there, and I go back and forth on this quite a bit. I don't, some days I land in one camp and some days I land in the other camp, but generally I agree with you that it's not, there is some conspiratorial stuff that's happening. There are some stuff.
There are some people
There's some closed door stuff
in a room.
Yeah. There's
like that shit
the cigar stuff, but mostly it's not that. Mostly it's they call it tacit collusion. And it basically is when, you have all these people who have will to power. And so, like, for instance, okay, if I want to be this great podcaster and it's going to be so good for me, but I'm the health and wellness guy and it's going so great. And it's like, okay, this is what I'm talking about. And then someone comes to me and they say, hey, Steve, we can, this is this great product that, we have here. And this is going to help a bunch of people and we'll pay you some money to do it. And it's like, okay, great. Let me promote that product and let me, go out there and do this. And then that person, they see me doing that, and that's a product that is, successful or bad for people or whatever.
Right.
It's successful, but we know that it's not good for people. And so then another person would see, another influencer, another person, content creator in California who doesn't know me, sees that I'm doing this, has success with it, and starts selling the same type of bullshit.
Yeah.
Right. And so then and then it starts happening all over the country. Right. And so people would think that like there's someone at the top who created this.
Yeah.
Who then said, yeah, let's go out and create this and put this down here and make these people sell this bullshit and we can market it this way.
Right.
When really what happened is I was trying to build my podcast and I got an opportunity to make some money. And then all these other content creators did the same thing and we all did it at once.
Yeah.
And so that's at like a small scale level.
Right.
And like that can then happen at like the biggest levels of government.
Yes.
and structure, organization. And
Yes.
so that's where you have like, okay, I don't necessarily want to like, help to bomb this country
Right.
necessarily, but
Yeah.
it will help my country out if I don't get involved.
Yeah.
And it's not a conspiracy. They don't,
Right.
it's just, what's the will to power?
Yeah.
Your own will, everyone has their own will to power. And,
yeah. Well, I think that there are a lot of problems that can be explained that way, right? Where like, if you look at the sum outcome, right, of all these individual decisions, it's not an outcome that everyone individually would say, oh, I'm happy with this, right? Like the housing market is a good example of this. Or the fact that we don't have like high-speed rail trains or all these wonderful things that we talk about we want all the time. But what is happening more often than not is, it's a bunch of individual people or organizations. They're all acting in their own self-interest, right? Like they're doing what's best for them. But when you add it all up, it creates a thing that's really not in the interests of everybody, right? And so that's like, and I think people they have a right to their opinion of like, will you participate in this system? And so you're culpable for this. But like, I think if you want to honestly understand, like, why is housing so messed up? Like, why is it so hard to buy a house? Why is rent so crazy? It's like, it's both things, people who live in a neighborhood or a town, they have a lot of incentives not to approve or desire more development in their area or development of certain type. And, when I was a renter, like I didn't show up to my town meetings to lobby for more housing that I didn't know if I was going to be living there or not, right? Like, but the people, like when everyone moves somewhere, they want it to stay exactly the way it is the day they move there, right? And that creates this perverse incentive where like, what is probably in the long-term interests of the community and the wider society is, again, to keep up with growth, at least to keep pace with, the demand that exists in the marketplace. But it's a rare person who will think in the abstract and say, okay, I'm going to think, 30 years from now, are our grandchildren going to be able to afford a place here because we're going to have enough supply for them? I'm going to go lobby for that at my town meeting today, right? Like it's a very, and then again, I'm not sure, like I'm not a housing expert. That's just something I learned from talking to someone who is. But it's just like, everyone is doing what's it like. Renters aren't really incentivized to go show up and lobby for their needs. Homeowners are incentivized to, be involved in the town's, political scene and go and advocate. No, I like that the way it is. That's why I moved here. I don't want it to change. Don't do it. Right. And for a lot of town managers, they're even in this weird position where like so much of the feedback that they get from the people who actually show up to meetings is like anti-development. It's like against, not having more supply fundamentally. And so they wouldn't, this question of like, what is more democratic, right? Like you can argue they wouldn't be a good town manager if they weren't responding to the feedback that they are getting, which more often than not is overwhelmingly against having like more housing supply.
Sure.
It's a very weird confluence of incentives, and it's like no individual one person's fault. It's just a bunch of messy actors and people all trying to do what's they think is best for them. Right?
Tacit collusion,
right?
Mm-hmm.
And and then it's like you can point the finger at like, well, is that a market problem? Is this a capitalist problem? Like, what is the? And it's like, man, I don't know.
I think it is. You know what I think it is?
What do you think it is?
I think it's a boomer problem.
You think?
I think
Maybe. It's funny you say that, actually.
The boomers, I love the boomers. I have a lot of friends and obviously my father and all these people, and they just don't understand the, they'll still say to a young man or a young woman that if you work hard, you'll get exactly what you want in America, because that's what happened for them. And I believe that. I do believe that if you work hard,
there's lots of opportunity.
There's a lot of opportunity, but at the same time, to ignore and to say that the opportunity is the same, I think is a criminal act.
Yeah.
Because it's not. It's not the same.
No.
And also there was perverse our generation and some other generation. It was we can't help. Just like I would never. If a doctor told a mother to give their baby medicine and the baby ended up getting sick from that medicine, it's not the mother's fault. The doctor, who is supposed to be the expert,
right,
told us. And so like what we were taught, that we needed to go to college and we needed to do all these different things, and this is how we needed to go make money, and this is the way the world was going. We weren't prepared for what was going to happen.
Yeah.
And the inflation of our economy and just the decrease in the amount of assets available to us. The average buyer of single family homes, the age is like 48 years old and climbing.
That's terrible.
Yeah, that's terrible. And I think it's in some states it's like it's in the mid 50s, and so it tells me that just people who are buying their second homes or have moved on and are still being able to buy homes. And so it's like I want to live in a world where my dad lived in probably a top 15 affluent town in Massachusetts, a town called Easton. Maybe it's top 30, I don't know, but it's a nice town. It's a really nice town south of Boston. And yeah, top 15's maybe a little bit high, but it's a very nice town in the south of Boston.
Worse towns to live in.
Yeah, and there's worse. It's a beautiful town. I had a beautiful upbringing. And my dad did that. He raised 5 children. He did that. He lived on lived on 2.5 acres. He lived in a 25 square foot house with 4 bedrooms, 2.5 bathrooms, a basement. He was able to save for his retirement. He was able to retire at 62 years old. And this man worked his fucking ass off. He worked his ass off. He worked some days 100-hour weeks. This guy, don't get me wrong. My mom didn't work.
Yeah.
My mom did not contribute financially at all. And my dad was able to raise 5 children in that house in Easton, Massachusetts. Yeah. Look me in the face and tell me that that's possible now, and I will tell you how it's not. It's not possible because that house that my dad bought, for $205,000, he sold, for $850.
Right.
And like that's you should have appreciation of your house, and that should happen.
Right.
But it's just not, maybe this area, and then so we need some type of, we do need some type of development. We do need some type of, And the people who own land and own that, they definitely, of course, they don't want that. That's a story as old as time. But I do, yeah. It's tough for me because I have a lot of friends who are doing really well because of I came up in pharmacy and they have they get good jobs and so that, and then I have from other parts of my career, I have other people who have not been able to buy a house yet and haven't been able to take that next step, and it just, they feel stunted in their life because that's like what we were told to do, right?
No, it infuriates me personally. I don't know who it wouldn't. I don't know a single person who's like, love it. I love the way the housing market is today. Like maybe some psycho realtor out there. But yeah, and I mean, again, I want to be very clear about this to people who listen, right? Like when I put stories out there in my newsletter, that's like, hey, new development here. Hey, there's an affordable housing thing going there. Like, the point is not, whoopee, we solved housing. It's to just give you something, some semblance of like.
I love the hope. Maybe.
Well, what I would say, put it this way, I don't think that I am an unusually optimistic person, to be honest with you. Maybe a little. I'm like pretty positive. I like meeting people. But I am very convinced that a lot of everything else is unduly pessimistic. Like I feel much more confident making that argument rather than like, oh, I'm some special, human sunbeam of energy. And I kind of am because of my work. Like I always have, interesting takes on things because we categorically, like optimism is a subversive stance to take on a lot of different topics nowadays. But when you look at the way a lot of different things used to be, it's an easy story to tell because it's like, well, dude, I mean, like FDR's son died from a finger infection from playing tennis, like in like that 30, like they hadn't even invented penicillin at that time, or like my brother is diabetic type 1. And, he tells me all the time, he's like, I just would be dead if I was alive 100 years ago. And now it's like, he has a pump and it's easy and there's an app and it's just like, he's basically a cyborg, like because of all this stuff. And
I had FDR's grandson on the podcast.
Are you kidding?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Is he good looking?
He is a fucking stud, dude.
Bet.
Yeah, Jack Roosevelt, he's like 6'6". He's got like this fucking full head of hair. He's like, 10 years older than us, maybe 10 years older than me. And fucking just head full of hair, looks great in a suit. Yeah. He may be, not even 6', he's like 6, he may be like 6'9".
He's a tall
dude. Wow. Yeah, man, he's cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah, FDR had his son FDR Jr. FDR Jr. had a few wives, and like on his 5th wife when he was like 60 years old, his wife was like 29.
I wonder what they thought of having a mustache.
How
his several wives.
I think they love the mustache.
I bet.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah,
one wasn't enough.
Yeah,
well, that's very cool. But yeah, I mean, I
sorry for the aside there, but I just thought it was a cool little giddy up.
The asides are why we're here.
Yeah, 100%.
The whole thing's an aside. I don't even know what question you asked me.
Me neither. That's the best part.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the way that you, like, I think the way you're doing news is refreshing, and people are responding to it because it's like I come across people and then they tell me about you.
Really?
They're like, yeah, dude, 100%. That's why I was like,
can I ask what they say?
Yeah.
This information is very valuable to me. Like I don't.
Yeah, Andy,
I know what my mom thinks of the podcast.
Yeah. So, people have said to me that one thing that I always hear is just take this.
I can take it.
People like your voice.
Oh, really?
They like the way you talk, and they think that you can articulate things. You do it with a patience and in a way that I've heard this from like the 3 or 4 different people. You do it in a way with patience and pizzazz. And they said that like you know how to articulate your points, like
you little perverts.
Yeah,
pizzazz.
Yeah, man. So that was cool, and they
very nice.
And that's what and they were excited that you are trying to have positive conversations about what's going on, and they thought that it would be cool if I connected with you.
Love it. Well, that means the world to me. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you for those people who like the way that I talk.
Cannabis products are becoming more popular every day. Whether you're looking for the best night's sleep, trying to mitigate daily stress, or just trying to enjoy some laughter with friends, OG Cannabis is the store for you. OG Cannabis has an unbiased approach that is unique and simple. Unlike the competition, they don't sell their own manufactured products, but instead proudly showcase the best vendors across Maine. A dispensary like no other. Come and visit today at 18 American Way, Elliott, Maine. OG Cannabis. Oh, and don't forget to use my promo code, Dr. BeeWell. See you guys there. Giddy up.
You do have a pretty cool voice.
Yeah, thank you.
Good podcast voice.
I don't know. I mean, I'm very, like you, I'm very curious about other people and about, like, I don't know what is more interesting than this question of just like, how's it going out there, planet Earth? Like, how are we balancing all? Because we live in this crazy time. And here's another thing that I have to think about, right? Like, and part of, why some of what I'm doing is fun is, again, I get to take a stance that is just a lot of businesses and media organizations, like, categorically, they just can't do it because they're reliant on like clickbaity bullshit ad revenue because of like eyeballs and all that stuff. And I'm like, I have total editorial freedom. So I can curate whatever I want. I could say whatever I want. And I can, like you, build a long-term relationship with an audience that's based on trust and respect and, just treating them like they're a smart person who wants to make the world better, like everybody is, and not talked down to and not told that they're stupid. And there's always fun stories to tell because, like, again, we get what's going on in the world. Like, we're super familiar with that. But there are more things that are true about the world today that are like, would have been considered and were pie in the sky, impossibly great outcomes that we just take them for granted. And, I don't say that to people to try and make this argument of like, well, look at this positive trend. You should just feel grateful for not, living on a stick in some poor country. Like, no, not at all what I mean. It's to remind people of what's possible, right? Mm-hmm. Like, when we think about what's possible for the world and what we can do, like, I see so many more examples of people being generous and innovative and thinking out of the box and just doing things you wouldn't believe to like make the world better for people they barely even know. Like, this shit happens all the fucking time, and you don't see it compiled together ever because it goes against the grain. So it's a really fun position to take. And I could give you endless little factoids, about like incarceration is one problem. Nobody has any idea that, like, again, I'm not saying it's great, but if you asked someone that, like, incarceration in America is one problem that I've been hearing about my entire life. That is just awful, right? We imprison more people than any other, peer nation. And, you can critique, like, America has no peer nation, not in the sense of like, we're so great. I mean, America's a very unique country. I don't even want to go there. But just like it's hard to compare, but even when you try, we do imprison a lot of people, right? Like, there's no way around that, just on an absolute and like a relative basis, right? And very often, statistically, unequally, right, on the basis of race. Like, there's just, if we lived in a perfectly egalitarian, equal society where like all the good things and all the bad things were, more distributed, right, on, somebody's race, if that's, the way that you're going to look at it, there wouldn't be so many black men in prison in America, right? But there are. Because
is it still that way? I know, like, when we were growing up, it was absolutely that way. And then I think that there's been a lot of movement in, like, at least talking about that and becoming a thing. And obviously things take time. Systems take so much time to change. I don't know the statistics, but you may. Has there been change on that?
There has. It's better than it was.
Yeah.
It's better than it was. I can't speak specifically to like the racial disparity in incarceration rates. I would guess that this probably gotten a little better, but it's probably still like pretty bad. But I do know that there has been a pretty substantial decrease in like the total number.
Total volume.
Right. And that has been because, like, what I mean by that, 2010, I think, was like the peak of this. If you're saying, okay, the peak of this problem is the time when there was just the most number of Americans in prison. It was in like 2010.
2 million.
Yeah, 2 million. I think it was like 2.6 or 2.8 million Americans, right? And if you talked to people, and all the source for this is this, well, there's 2 articles. There's one from NPR and the one from The Atlantic that ran earlier on in the summer. And like, I could share those with people. But like, so this isn't like me just like pulling statistics. Like, this was published in, The Atlantic magazine. It's like quite credible. But if you talk to people in 2010 and, the stance at that time was like, hey, this is a really big, ugly problem. Maybe if we work really hard, the most like radically optimistic projection for like, can we make this better, would be to cut that figure in half, right? By 2030 or something like that. Like, maybe we can cut it in half. Maybe we can, get it down to like, 900,000 people in prison, right? And that's if that was considered like a radically great outcome. Today, we're on track, if current trends continue, right? Those trends being people being decarcerated, right? Released from prison, and, generally lower crime, so less people going into prison, right? If those things hold up, by 2030, we're on track to blow past a 50% reduction. It's going to be closer to like 600,000 people still in prison by 2030. Right, which is like
5% reduction.
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, it's, again, even one person, like unfairly incarcerated, or even like there's a whole, I'm not trying to say like the prison system is wonderful, like we shouldn't critique it. Like, there's all these issues that you can take up with it, but just this is an unbelievably great trajectory to be on that was considered impossibly good not so long ago. That has happened slowly and gradually because of thousands of micro reforms at, the state and the county and, the local level, and just all these people across America trying to think better and smarter of like, what do we do about, the unfairness and, just this really tough incarceration. And
maybe we shouldn't have people in jail for cannabis. Yeah, maybe we should think about this one.
I don't think that that's even a radical position. Like, I think that the average person would be like, why are we doing that? That's another sign of like progress, right?
Yeah, 30 years ago, they would have been like, lock that person up. They are harming our society.
It's crazy. It's crazy, And so, that's just one example of like, to me, that's like an astonishing victory for like, just human freedom, like on an absolute level. It's like, this is an incredible thing to have happen and to be on this trend and this trajectory. And no one's talking about it, right? Because the nature so often of progress, right? And, good things that happen, they are opposite and antithetical in all these ways to the things that we define as newsworthy, right? Things that are newsworthy, they're new, right? But they tend to be, dramatic and an aberration from, whatever like the norm is, right? Like a plane crash. Plane crash is terrible. I'm not like, if I was in a plane crash, I'd be very unhappy. If I knew someone who's in a plane crash, like, I'd be upset, of course. But if all you read is stories about plane crashes, it gives you, like if you go read 100 stories about planes crashing, you're going to feel less comfortable getting on a plane because we don't have a rational, totally unbiased view of like reality and looking at different problems. It's still true that planes are very, very safe, right? Like, they're like the safest way to get anywhere statistically. So, that's all to say, again, I'm not trying to tell people that the world is perfect, but what I am trying to do is to take a thing that we're used to treating as unsexy and unimportant, right? Motivated, smart people working out of the limelight, behind the scenes on really complex, ugly problems. Why don't we talk about them more, right? Like, let's make that sexy and interesting. And that's the nature of how a lot of things get better. It's not newsworthy. It's slow and unsexy, steady progress, right? But here's another way of thinking about it, Ivo. I love to think about it this way. The news cycle only gives us, again, I'm not trying to tell people the news doesn't matter. Of course it matters. Journalism is very important. It's very hard to figure out like what the fuck is going on in the world and to try and explain that to people, right? Like, it's an art form, it's a science, it's a craft. I have total respect for people who do it. I rely on them, right? I don't write anything original. I just curate their stories. But the nature of the media, like the news cycles are short. It's like 1 week. It's like 1 day. It only gives you a snapshot of like the biggest, most ugly, dramatic things happening in that span of time. What it doesn't give you categorically is, okay, what did the news cycle look like 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 1 year ago? Those big, scary, ugly problems that you heard about, what happened to them? What did they get better? Did they get solved? You don't know, because that's not what the news tells you.
They never follow up.
They never follow up. Remember the killer bees in like 2018 or whatever? Like the killer bees showed up and this was like wall-to-wall media covered.
Of course, yeah.
Right?
I'm the bee guy. I definitely knew about it.
They figured it out. They fixed the killer bee problem. Yeah. And they never talked to me.
No more murder hornets.
Yeah, exactly. No more murder hornets, right? I'm sure there's something fucked up with murder hornets happening. But you know what I mean? So like all the time we are living with, the blossoming seeds of smart people who've been working for a long time on like how to make X or Y better. Okay. And similar seeds are being planted today. What I'm trying to do is tell the stories of those things happening, right? Because the news only gives you a snapshot of the now, right? The incarceration thing is like one example, right? Gradual progress over time, the adoption of renewable energy, the efficiency of solar cells as an energy source. This is another impossibly great trajectory. Like I could go on and on and on, but the whole point is, I'm trying to be the one that follows up on the things that were like once hailed as unassailable, ugly problems that were never, ever, 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 ever going to get better if you listen to the news, right? Turns out lots of things do get better. It happens slowly over time. And then by the time you learn about it, like even think of the pandemic, right? We refer to it as the pandemic because we live in a time when pandemics are rare and unusual, right? If you had said to someone 100 years ago, aren't you worried about the pandemic? They'd be like, to which one are you referring? They'd be like, is it like, this flu or that flu? It's like, so there even is, it obviously would have been better if that hadn't happened, but there's a notion of progress built in even to the way that we like live our lives and talk about things that is interesting and fun to talk about because it's like, oh, I guess that is, that was so bad because it was really rare. And it's a good thing that it was rare and we should endeavor to understand why.
Yeah, I think COVID was awesome.
Yeah.
I think it was awesome.
It was amazing.
You know what? It allowed people to open their eyes and to see deeper that we have to fix the structures.
It was a shakeup for sure.
It was a shakeup that the structures that we have in place, they need a little bit more governance and they need to be shaken up a little bit. And so but yes, yeah, exactly what you're saying.
You know what I like to say? Sometimes people, the COVID excuse is coming back, by the way. It's kind of sucked. For a couple of years, it was like an ironclad excuse to get out of something. You just say, I got COVID. I got exposed, right? Easy win. Then it's, came out of vogue because it was like the pandemic's over. Now I got people giving me the COVID excuse again, And I'm like, what's with that?
I got COVID?
Yeah, people are saying that. I'm not trying to tell them, like, I'm not disputing. I'm not trying to make light of it. I'm a little bit making light of it. It's a big issue. Like, it sucks. It's not good. But, the joke I like to tell lately, people say I have COVID. And I say, what's COVID? Because it's just like, what do you mean? It was everywhere. And
what's COVID?
It's funny.
Yeah, if you have COVID, I'm over here. You can come spit in my mouth. I'm due for it again.
There you go.
Yep.
That's the attitude we need.
It's the attitude we need, man. It's like, it's whatever,
Share your virus with me.
Share your germs with me. Share your, we do need to share germs. It's how we advance as a species, is we share germs, and there's our ways that can be very dangerous and that can kill a lot of us. So we need to do it in a way that is, smart. And, if we can control it a little bit, we try. And so it's by that, I mean, like if somebody gets sick, they should stay home and they shouldn't just purposefully go and infect people. But
I think that would be good.
Right. Yeah.
I think we can agree on this.
We agree on that one. Yeah, man. The stories that, you're telling stories, dude, that are that people are like, they do hit people close to home, which is really cool because it's right here in our state. Now, do you like, do you see Granite Goodness like evolving into like, where do you like, you know, you've grown it quite a bit, you know, you have a good following and you have a good social media, and like, where do you see it growing into from, you know, basically, I know you've explained it to us, but do you have like a further vision of what it could be? And I only ask that because with me and my platform, you know, I've been starting to do like more, you know, I've always wanted my whole thing is connecting in person and wanted to do that. And so I've been starting to do like more groups and more, you know, being on more panels, and I know that you do some of that stuff too.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm just curious about like what you know, what the vision is, you know, going forward for you.
Yeah. And thanks for asking that. I don't know. It could be a bunch of different things. I'm not sure that there would be like another expansion of the scope of it, right? To be like, oh, I'm going to start covering good news around the world or something.
Mm-hmm.
But part of why I started doing it locally is because, you know, there are like, this is a niche. And again, this is a hyper niche. Like the biggest, you know, solutions journalism newsletter, like for the whole world, that I think is the biggest and best one. They only have like 70,000 subscribers. Which, you know, is a lot, but like with a potential audience of 8 billion people, that's not very much, right? And credit to them, like their work is smart, and I'm a huge fan of, you know, you, Angus Hervey, if you ever listen to this. But, you know, that is an indicator to me of like, okay, how niche this is relative to an audience size. Like, so, and it's a niche that is well plied. Like I could give you like 7 organizations right now that do that same thing. You know, they round up, you know, stories of progress, stories of innovations, stories of like positive developments, all these different things. And their purview is all of planet Earth, right? And there's a ton of people that do that, and they do a great job. Like I have nothing to add there. And so my motivation as an entrepreneur, which I think you can attest to and share, like I think that people generally, particularly entrepreneurs, like you are going to be most motivated, you're going to be the most effective, you're going to have, you know, the biggest and most impactful actual outcome when you are, I have a feel to manifest a thing that like wouldn't exist otherwise, like that your effort makes an actual difference on the margin. Like I don't want to go and be like, okay, here's another newsletter about global poverty. Cool. There's like 30 other ones that are being done by people way smarter than me who have been doing it for much longer time. It's like, I don't want to compete with them. I like them. I like what they're doing. I want to support what they're doing. You know, I began as a fan. So, you know, when I got exposed to this world, I was like, what's a way that I can actually contribute to this in a way that is novel, right? That no one else is doing. Oh, people don't seem to be applying this lens locally, right? And it's a very, very niche thing, as near as I can tell. Like, I don't think the audience for what I'm doing will ever be like enormous, but you know, there's 15 million people in New England. I bet, you know, pie in the sky, maybe there's 10 to 30,000 people who would be like really interested in what I'm doing. Cool. How do I reach them, right? And how do I build and plug into all these wider networks, you know? So that's kind of the view I bring. And I have a really good relationship with some of these other, you know, bigger progress journal. Like we're a member of the Progress Network proudly. You know, they are kind of the big umbrella for a lot of this stuff. I know those people a little bit. I know the Fix the News people. Like we might all collaborate at some point. Like we might do a meetup. Like I've been talking to them lately. There's other organizations like Rutger Bregman's, you know, School for Moral Ambition. Like they're all about, I was literally on a call this morning, you know, with this, you know, woman in the Netherlands whose job it is to like try and form networked groups of, you know, young people around the world who are excited about solving big problems. And I was like, hello, I'm here in New England. Like, I want to be your point person for New England, like, and connect with the other people around here who are really doing that. So it's like, there's a way that this work can complement a lot of other bigger organizations that like are already doing this thing. But this idea of, okay, we're going to take an explicitly optimistic view of, you know, a bunch of different things, and we're going to compile news stories that are good, but not fluffy. That's very unusual. That's very, very unusual. My suspicion and, you know, my hope and conviction as well is that this will, like, I think that optimism is going to come into vogue more than it has been. I'm biased, right? Obviously, because I'm super interested in it, but like, I could tell you, you know, there's more stuff all the time. Like Cleo Abram, right? She's a huge content creator. She used to be at Vox. A lot of these super talented people used to be at Vox Media. And her stuff is just like, she's doing great. She has like a bajillion subscribers. And her shit is explicitly, it's like, this is optimistic technology explainer content, right? Explicitly optimistic.
Cleo Abram?
Yeah. She does a fantastic job. She's like super engaging, super smart, interesting. And I'm just like, wow, okay, there's like 6.5 million people who like want optimistic tech content. There was a show that came out last year with the guy from Game of Thrones, Jaime Lannister, Nikolai Coster-Waldau, whatever.
Yeah.
He was on a show that got produced called An Optimist Guide to the Planet, where he just like went around the world and talked to people like solving big stuff. There was a Spotify podcast that got produced that was hosted by one of the Skarsgårds guy, Alex Skarsgård.
I love the Skarsgårds.
Yeah, they're a whole weird family.
Fucking handsome fucks.
Yeah, I was about to say the hot one, but they're all hot. Yeah,
I think Eric.
Yeah, Eric.
Yeah. I think his name's Alex, but he's Eric from True Blood.
Okay, see?
Yeah.
We can talk about True Blood.
Oh.
That show's so crazy.
Fuck, it's so crazy.
But they, greenlit a show with him called We Can Fix This, or how do we fix this? And it's about like people making climate change better and stuff. So it's like, I see there's a whole subreddit for this stuff called r/Optimists Unite. And Reddit's a little ridiculous. Like, it's kind of a silly place, but it's an indicator, right? That subreddit got created like a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, and it's gone from 0 to like 350,000 people are now members of that subreddit, right? So it's like, I see an opportunity that is unfolding in both, grassroots interest in media, but also, produced media at the highest levels for like, people want optimistic content. They want optimistic stories. They want to not feel endlessly hopeless about the state of the world and our ability to make it better. I see the same opportunity set. I just think there's a niche to be enjoyed, locally, to like bring that same story. And New England is a very interesting place to do this, because it's like part of why I wanted to start doing it
Because
in
it's Athens.
Yes, exactly. It's Athens. Which makes you like, where is Sparta, right? If we're
yeah, right. Yeah.
we're the effete homosexuals, and we're the buff gay homosexual, right? Like, I love the Athens and Spartan thing. Yeah, we could talk about that. But yeah, so that's like, New Hampshire is this very weird place in America. I love it. I'm from here. I've lived here my whole life, and I feel like people have talked down to it my whole life.
Yeah. I used to talk down to it when I was a Massachusetts guy.
Yeah.
Then I got my ass up here and I was like, holy shit, let's this is the greatest place ever. And now I'm embarrassed by my 508 number, although I still love it. It's like, dude, I mean, it's funny. It was Hickville. That's what New Hampshire was. A bunch of hicks, bunch of, whatever. And then it's like you come up here and it's like, oh my God, this place is actually amazing, and the people are amazing.
Yes.
Like, dude, they want to have conversation with me. Like, I'm here. I'm raising my fucking family here because I love it. I'm a New Hampshire guy.
I think that New Hampshire has a lot to say in this moment in not just American history, but political conversation and dialogue, right? I like the fact that our government is meaningfully contested politically, right? Like, that it's not, just totally captured, by one or the other. I'm not even trying to express like a preference, like partisan wise. I'm just saying, I think it's a good thing on net for there to be a legitimate contest between different ideologies of government. Like, I think this is a good thing, because it engenders, more of a, like, you have to make your case, you have to empathize with people more. And there are fewer and vanishing places in America where like that is the case. And I think that's on net a bad thing. So I see New Hampshire as kind of like, a legitimately purple, not just like political place, but just this really, really unusual, like I got to talk to the governor. Like, what the fuck? Like, that's amazing, And, I'm proud of that and pleased that I had that opportunity. But at the same time, it's like, I don't know that that would be as possible as it was here in somewhere like California or Illinois or Texas.
Oh, definitely not.
Definitely not.
No, dude, New Hampshire, that's what I love. Like, when I got here, I'm like, I get pulled. I hate politics, but I get pulled by it because it is beautiful at the same time.
It's everything.
And it's everything, exactly. And so, like, I love the ability that I was able to, when I was following Andrew Yang and I believed in his message, I was able to go see him and shake his hand 3 times.
Yeah, love him.
Yeah, and so I and this maybe you probably won't agree with. Or I don't know. I'm not gonna actually say judgment.
This is a safe space.
It's a safe space. I was in Boston when RFK announced, and I was at Scott Brown's barbecue, and RFK was over there, and you want to talk about housing, that's a guy, like I said, he's in a role now that he's whatever, he's trying to do his best, I think, but and there's a lot of stuff that maybe is not ideal, but I don't know. It's like at least someone's trying to figure some stuff out,
right?
But he was like, his main thing was like, taking back control from BlackRock and from Vanguard and State Street and the crony capitalism that has really kind of some of that tacit collusion and some of that will to power is like they've just said a little bit too much of it, and we need to just kind of take back that a little bit. So I'm just always an independent guy, trying to. And New Hampshire gives that to you. It's accessible. It's right there. You want to go talk to the governor because you're a local podcaster, go do it. If you're a person who lives in town and you want to go hear all these people talk, go do it.
Right. Yeah. No, the tradition of direct democracy
it lives here,
very alive and well. It's like we invented it. Not really, but you know what I mean. Like it's
kept it alive.
Yeah, it's been built into the fabric, and the fun thing about talking about, again, like progress and problem solving, in this area is like I could give you many examples of things that New Hampshire has done, and I would argue is actually like leading the country on. Like we're on the leading edge of some of these things, not despite our relative like smaller size and like amount of resources compared to like a California or something, but because of it, because of our size, because of our sense of community and our relationships and our social capital, right, is this phrase that gets thrown around, like
ability to connect and collaborate. It's right here. You can get anywhere from within an hour and a half. You want to get somewhere in New Hampshire, you can drive there in an hour and a half.
Everybody knows somebody who knows somebody. Like the guy who is like the premier scholar of social capital, right, this like, how do you measure a sense of community and the way that people provide value to each other outside of like a marketplace, right? Like, do people know their neighbors, right? That's what it is. The dude who knows more about this topic than anyone else, like living in America, is this guy, Robert Putnam. He wrote this famous book, Bowling Alone. He's the man. He's very old now, but he lives in Jaffrey, New Hampshire, right? And I don't think that that's an accident. Like, he just, I had the opportunity to meet him a little while ago, and it was just like this really, well, I actually didn't meet him. I got to see him. It was like a pilgrimage. He was giving a talk, and all these people got to show up, and I was like, oh my God, that's Robert Putnam. But like, he chose to like be here, and there are a lot of ways that we like community power, right? Is this one example that
hey, I'm Bowling Alone. I'm fucked up right now because I'm that's a book where he talks about bowling league and you bring the doctors together and the plumbers together.
Yeah, see, you understand.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I've been a part of a bowling league because of it.
I love that.
Yeah, Candlepin.
You're living the message.
Yeah, yeah, man. Yeah.
But like, take energy as an example, right? Energy and people's relationship to like the power grid. Ugly thing, right? Costs are always going up. We have really expensive electricity right here in the Northeast, especially here in New Hampshire. And, what does everybody want? Everyone, wants it to be cheaper. And ideally, can we get it a little bit cleaner, right? Can we get it from a source that pollutes less than, coal or whatever, right? The concept of community power aggregation, right? Which is basically a town incorporating as their own utility, right? And then directly negotiating, with like energy suppliers on the grid, but in coalition with a bunch of other towns who've like opted into doing the same thing, more or less. That's a thing that tons of towns in New Hampshire are now doing, is this really out of the box way of tackling this problem. And it lets people a lot of the time actually save on like their rates and gives them more freedom and flexibility to choose what the source of their power is. And a lot of communities opt to have it be like, no, I want it
solar.
Yeah, solar, renewables, like nuclear, all that stuff. And, that's, I think, like something like 40% of ratepayers are now covered by community power. You can look it up, but that's just like this really innovative way of tackling this problem. Incredible. Yeah, it's amazing. People who are like in the know and the energy are like, this is awesome, and they know about it, but like a lot of people have no idea. And that's a thing, Ivo. Like, if you had brought that to, I keep shitting on California, but yeah, I was there before. I don't really know about it, but a lot of other states, that are bigger and I think have less of like a sense of communal relationship.
Like California.
Like California, right? And you had said to them, hey, here's a way that you can make, your energy system better for the average ratepayer. It's not going to require a huge, capital investment in like a gigantic new infrastructure. All it's going to require is that people at the town level independently come and organize around a thing, and then like they go and do it. I think that in a lot of places they would laugh at you. They'd be like, haha, that would never happen. Like, people don't do that. They don't take that level of interest in like the goings on of things in town. We have that in spades here, right? And like, so this is a way that New Hampshire has been able to like really tackle this problem in a way that I just think is, not structurally, but like really just not available as an avenue to a lot of other places because people don't know each other as well. But, again, direct democracy and knowing your neighbors, this is a tradition that is well established here. And it's a thing that, we may not have tax revenues or population or, an influx of young people in abundance, right? Like a lot of other places. But what we do have in abundance is a sense of community. And this is a way that we've been able to leverage that to like make progress on a really ugly thing that like a lot of states just, they wouldn't be able to do it. They wouldn't be able to do it. And so it's like, damn, that's a cool New Hampshire thing, right? No one knows about it. So I'm always telling the story of like community power and like what's going on with that. So there's endless examples that I could go on about. I love the Granite State.
Ladies and gentlemen, my homie loves the Granite State. He loves New England. His positivity and optimism, I can feel it today. I always feel it when I read his stuff. And I love that you have that perspective. I love it because you said it is so necessary and it is so needed in today's day and age, and you are going to be a leader in it, and that you're so grounded in it. It doesn't matter. I'm not doing this to get 8 million followers. I'm doing this because it's what I want to be doing, and it's what I should be doing with my time because my skill set, I say the greatest gift that the human being can give to the world is realizing what their skill set and passion is and then delivering on that.
Yeah.
And that's what you're doing, Andy. And I appreciate you so much, man. I hope that we get to do this again.
Are we out of time?
We are.
Oh my God.
Ooh,
I felt like we were just starting.
I felt like we were just starting to,
I'm
dude.
so bad. I talked the entire time.
No, dude.
I'm so sorry.
Don't be sorry. I had an awesome time here, and I could, like I said, we could have kept going, and I would love to keep going. I know you have a heart out today.
Part 2.
We will do a part 2. Exactly, 100%.
Like it if they're like, that guy shut him up enough.
Well, 100%. But it's like I said, I do this because I do listen to the feedback of my audience and stuff like that. But I'm doing this because it's what I'm passionate about. And it's my skill set. My skill set is to draw out what people are doing and to try to help them be comfortable in delivering what they're good at. And so, we will do it again.
I hope so. There's so much we didn't even get into.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, we'll get into it. We'll definitely get into it. Maybe I'll come on your podcast. We'll keep pushing it forward, my friend.
Ivo, I have such a pleasure. I'm really impressed with your happy little studio here. And, you emanate a really positive vibe virtually, and it is magnified in person. You are the same person in reality that you project to be in the virtual world. And I think that's a wonderful thing, and it's not always the case. And so I'm always happy to meet, people who also are like, yeah, like, let's be well. Is there a silly tagline like, and that's Dr. BeeWell, like, let's be well?
There's no tagline like on the end of the show, but there should be. And we have the tagline. The tagline is giddy up.
All right.
It's always been giddy up.
Giddy up. Giddy up.
Giddy up.
I love it.
Yeah, until next time, baby. Giddy up.
Oh, giddy up.
And thank you. And this is going to be the best ending to a podcast ever because it's like I went to go end it and then you said that really nice thing. And I'm going to definitely keep that in because that's wonderful and beautiful.
I want to say thank you. I want to say thank you. Thanks for making the time for me.
Yeah, man. Thank you. Yeah. You are very welcome. And thank you for, for noticing that because that's all I care about is authenticity.
Yeah.
If I can be authentic, and that's actually what I'm showing people in the world is that that social media and the paradigm of social media is changing. The more authentic that you can be, the better that you will do with your business and in your life.
Yeah.
And
can I make one more plug?
Yes.
Which I'm so bad at. Hey, we're doing the very first ever Granite Goodness live event in 5 weeks. It's going to be November 20th at the Rex Theater in Manchester, New Hampshire. We're going to have Steve Turner and Shayna Brunier from Bring Back the Trades. They promote trades work and how to get people into cool and interesting career pathways for the trades. We're going to be co-moderated by my friend Corinne Benfield, who runs Stay Work Play out of Manchester. It's all about how do we attract and retain young professionals to the state of New Hampshire. And we'll be joined by the new Congresswoman from District 2 in New Hampshire, Maggie Goodlander, who's going to bring us her perspective from Congress and how these things all coalesce and like how can we build a better future for the Granite State with our own hands. It's going to be a great time. Don't miss it. You can learn more about that on granitegoodness.com. Hope to see you there.
Yes, I will be there, and if you need any help from me with any type of event, I am here to help.
I appreciate that. I will.
Well, then what do we say, Andy?
Giddy up.
Giddy up, folks. We'll see you guys next time.